This week concludes our series on more than enough. We've done quite a few things throughout this time of more than enough. We've listened and heard the story of Dr. Mary Neal. She was the one who got stuck in her kayak on a river in Peru. The kayak was upside down in about 15 feet of water. She couldn't get out, and she knew she was going to die. So she actually gave herself up to God. She says, "Thy will be done." And at that moment, her spirit left her body. All she can see now at this point is that her body's out there laying on the side of the riverbank. They're trying to do CPR, and they're trying to do something for her, and she's happy where she's at. She doesn't want to go back. She has 4 small children at home, but she doesn't want to go back. So it finally ends up that she does go back, but she knew at the same time they were told her son was going to die early in age, that she was totally comforted and everything was going to be fine. And it was wonderful to think about how much life is in this earth, but how much more grand it is going to be when we get to the other side. And we also looked at some things like going to the top of the mountain through the Lord of the Rings, and how this one little hobbit, he was just a little guy who was in charge of dropping the ring into the mountain. And then we remembered that life is a process. Here on this earth, life is truly a process, and we have to live it to the fullest. So, I had a story I wanted to talk about. As a deacon trainee for many years, I started in 2004. I went to Sacred Heart Seminary for my classroom experience and got a degree in pastoral ministry. And all of a sudden, after about 2007, I go into the diaconate training for the Lansing Diocese and was ordained in 2011. But in that meantime, from 2007 to 2011, almost every Saturday, we had some type of formation process throughout the diaconate to get us ready to be here in the parishes. And the one time that I remember the most of all that 4 years was we were in Davison, out of St. John's in Davison, and we were doing this seminar on the hard of hearing in the deaf and the mute community. And at that time, I was not really aware of that culture at all. And it was wonderful. We had one of our parishioners here did a talk. He was in sign, it was in some verbal that he could speak some, but his actions spoke so much to me that it still remembers this over 10 years later. And the story was, he was talking about the Eucharist, and he took a host, and he took this host. This isn't consecrated, so don't worry, it's not consecrated. So he took this host, but he did not tell us that it wasn't consecrated. And through his actions and his signs, he took this host, and he wanted to see our reaction, what would happen to it. He took this host, threw it on the ground, stepped on it, scrammed it into the ground. And at this point, all us guys are up on our chairs. We're coming to what's going on. He's stepping on Jesus. I couldn't get over it that he was stepping on Jesus. Of course, he stopped us halfway up there and says, "No, it's not consecrated." But I wanted to make a point that through any signs and symbols, we know who Jesus is. And that's what Jesus gives us. He gives us himself through just this little tiny thing. And it's extremely important for us to remember as Catholics. Many times, still Catholics to this day don't get it. We still don't understand. This is Jesus when it's consecrated here at the altar. I remember my first communion. I was 7. And oh my goodness, how can somebody this old remember somebody back when I was 7 years old? It was a grace that God gave me, and I can remember it like it was yesterday. We were in these little white shirts, got the little white tie on. We all sat in perfect rows. The girls all sat on this side in the perfect white dresses. I think we had it almost in the picture up here before. And each one of us had been told for weeks and almost years that we are going to receive Jesus, and how special that moment was. Of course, back in those days, we came up to the communion just like we do here. We walk up the main aisles, but all of you remember there was this fence across the altar, right? Remember those? Yeah. For the younger ones, we called it an altar rail, and you would go up to your spot. Father would come. Actually, it was Monsignor Groschek was my first communion priest, so you'd all Monsignor. And it's amazing that we still have Monsignor with us. And he would give communion to us on the tongue. You didn't put your hands out. You would have lost your hands if you put your hands out. So we get to communion, and we're receiving Jesus. We go back, and we're just elated. We don't know why. We don't get it. We're 7 years old. But everyone in my family was throwing me presents and giving me things. My grandmother gave me the same statue of Mary like this, only about this big, that she treasured from a little girl. She gave it to me. I don't know why she gave me Mary when I'm receiving Jesus, but it took me a long time to figure it out. But my great aunt Annie, she gave me a silver dollar that was probably 100 and some years old at that time, and said, "Don't ever spend this. This is very valuable." And I'm going, why are they giving me all these great presents? It still took me a while to get it. But they knew, and they were giving me their faith. They were giving me what it really meant to receive special gift. And I'll never forget that. Because when we receive Jesus, we become a receptacle of Jesus. Just for that few minutes, we become this. We become a monstrous for God. We can take this, we do adoration here at 24/7. We do encounter once a month at Fridays, and we put the monstrous on the altar. But when we receive Jesus, we're this monstrous. We are no longer just the guy walking down the street. I am with Jesus. I am being a little Jesus, and I'm supposed to act like it. But I am a monstrous now, and we all are monstruses from now on. We receive this little bit of Jesus. We become a little bit of heaven. And heaven, as we showed some of the videos earlier, what is heaven like? We're all going to experience it one day. But heaven is many different things, and it's many different things to us. Some of the guys talked about it earlier in this week, that it's a great big banquet, and we can eat all we want. We won't get fat. Some said it's almost all the ice cream we could ever want, that every flavor you could ever want. The choir, the director said it was everybody sang in tune. But I thought, it kept thinking about its peace. It's joy. It's total love. And it's a place I want to go to.